Hi! Welcome to this preview video for a Kickstarter campaign for a game that we already had the first version printed from the first Kickstarter campaign, Small Star Empires. In this campaign we'll have the reprint of the second edition of this little gem, but also we'll have the possibility to print and publish those two small but very interesting expansions for the game, the Dawn of Discoveries and the Galactic Divide. Now we would be very happy here to make a video preview just for the reprint of the second edition for this game, because we really think it's a small gem. It has small size, very nice elements, area control, grid movement, fantastic components, and it's quite portable, fast and easy to teach. But we're not here just for the print of the second edition, we're here to show you the elements of the two new expansions. Now just a few seconds to summarize the main concepts of the base game, so we can easily show you the additional components and the elements of the two expansions. So basically, for gameplay wise, what you do is you move your spaceship and you establish control. This is very simple. You can start with two spaceships if in a 4-player game, for example, or even 4 with more players, and this is a modular board. You can see you can set up different maps depending on what the rulebook suggests, or even try your own configurations. So on your turn, each player has simply to choose a spaceship, move it towards any one direction as long as they don't have any obstacle, freely, as far as they want, and where they stop, they can establish control. For example, they can place a colony. Another player can simply come here and establish control, but putting a trading post, a trading station. On a subsequent turn, another player can come here, take control. You can move the same spaceship or a different one, it's up to you, and the reasoning behind it. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to take control of and colonize as many areas as possible with a few concept keys in mind. You're trying to colonize those planetary systems, because at the end of the game, if the planetary system has one planet, like this one, would give the player 1 point, 1 victory point. If the planetary system has 2 planets, it will give 2 additional victory points, and if you have planetary systems very occupied with 3 planets, you'll get 3 victory points. The same goes for all players. Another way to earn victory points, for example for this trade station, is each occupied space hex around the trade station awards 1 VP for the player owning the trade station. So the green trading station here would get 1, 2, 3 VPs regardless of the color of the occupation around the hex. So you can get either points by colonies or by the trading stations for the spaces around them that they have some kind of enemy presence, or even your own presence. In addition, you can get victory points at the end of the game. That is when there are no more legal movements from any of the players. For if you own, you get 2 victory points if you own 1 nebula of 1 color, 5 points if you have 2 nebula of the 1 color, and 8 points if you have all nebula of 1 color. So these nice nebula systems, the green, the blue and the red, award the players additional victory points depending on the amount of nebulas owned by each player. The last thing that awards victory points to the players in the base game is 3 victory points to the player with the largest territory, which is the most connected systems in a single territory. The game may sound very easy, which is, the rules are very simple, but yet the depth comes from the choices and the complexity of the abstract elements of this game. So there are a lot of special tiles, like the ones that you can see in front of you, that add additional variants and additional victory points within the game, also a lot of surprises. All these are parts of the base game. Now let's move to the expansions. Okay, here are the components of the new expansion, Dawn of Discoveries. This expansion features technology cards, you can see some of them open here. Also, you get research stations, 3 in each player color, like those 3 yellow. Each player gets their own 3. Let's have a closer look on the details. Again, this is a prototype. This is a very cool mini, and there is a reason for the hole in the center, because there's going to be a mineral in this research station. Talking about minerals, you can see those gems here. These are very rare minerals that they emit energy, and it's the focus of the research stations. And also we get the cards that have a lot of variety. We're going to come into the use of the cards when we explain the rules for this first expansion. When we add the Dawn of Discoveries in the Small Star Empires, we start with a very simple setup in addition to the setup of the game. We put the 3 minerals in a cloth bag, we shuffle them and place 1 mineral on each one planetary system on the board. This is done randomly. For example, all these go into a cloth bag and we start putting 1 mineral on each single planetary system on the game board. If anyone has played Small Star Empires, immediately they will recognize that now suddenly those single planetary systems that before they were worth only 1 victory point, and frequently the games would end with some of them not even being occupied, now they would be the center of attention for the players. We'll come back with some more details on that. Then we shuffle the technology cards. Again, this is a prototype, so you can see some of the cards here. I'm sure they're going to be more with the stretch goals. So we shuffle those technology cards and we create a market. We will reveal cards equal to the number of players plus 1. So if you have a 4-player game, we'll reveal 5 cards in a row, like that, and we'll put the deck next to the row so we can provide additional cards once they are bought from the players. Now we're not going to go into all details for these cards, just to show you a few of the art, and you'll immediately understand their use and their importance once we explain how you acquire them and how minerals are connected to them. But you can see a lot of variety already from the prototype. We'll explain the anatomy of the card. Last but not least, each player will get the research stations of his color. Again, I'm reminding you that we have 3 research stations in addition to the components that we have when we start the game. This is from the base game. The research stations are coming from the Dawn of Discoveries. So it's pretty clear already that those minerals are the focus of the players in this first expansion. So how do you gain minerals? First, when colonizing a system that contains a mineral, the player will receive the corresponding mineral. So the single planetary systems that before were a bit now they are much more important, because players will want to move their ships to those planetary systems to establish a colony, but also to gain the precious new mineral. When you acquire a new mineral, you just simply place it next to your reserve. The second way to acquire minerals is with research stations. When a player colonizes a system, he may place a research station instead of a colony. For example, this player yellow moves over here and they decide to colonize this system, not with a simple colony, but with a research station. By doing so, the player draws a random mineral from the bag and places it on top of the station. Like that. When a player colonizes a system adjacent to a research station with a mineral in it, he takes that mineral from the research station and puts it in his reserve. The owner of the research station takes a random mineral from the bag. Just to illustrate this with an example, the red player would move their spaceship here. They would similarly colonize this planetary system, and by doing so they could acquire this red mineral. This is why they came here, to get this red mineral. They would put it next to the reserves, and the player owning the yellow research station will draw a random new mineral from the bag. So the red player really wants to get the red mineral, obviously to buy a card that requires a red mineral, and they go targeting this area, so they colonize an area next to the yellow player station that has the mineral on it. They acquire it, and for compensation the yellow player will draw a new mineral from the bag. Now on a player's turn, they may pay the mineral cost of a technology card to buy it. They can buy as many technology cards as they can pay for, but be aware that those minerals come pretty difficult to the game, so you can acquire quite a lot. So you can pay as much as you want, depending on the cost on the card. The cards, as you can see, they have a cost in minerals on the left side. So for example, these repair drones require 2 white minerals, 1 green and 1 red. and they provide the player a special ability. On a player's turn, he can choose to play the ability of one or more of their cards by resolving the text and the effect they provide, and then they tap the card sideways to show that they have already used it. This is a one-time effect. At the end of the game, every technology card owned by a player, whether it was used or not within the game, it provides 2 victory points for the owner. Let's see a few examples of what those technology cards do. For example, the planetary siege cannon. After you move and colonize with your ship, you gain 1 victory point for each opponent system adjacent to that ship. The deep space colony modules. After you move and colonize, you may colonize another uninhabited star system adjacent to the ship you just moved. And finally, the repair drones. You can repair all of your damaged ships with no cost just by tapping this card. These are just 3 examples of the fantastic new technology cards and the options they provide. Keep in mind that all of those cards would award 2 victory points to the owner, regardless if they manage to use tactically the card within the game for their purposes or not. This is a good point to score extra victory points. You also get a very nice score track with this game before you had the score pad. I really prefer this score track where you take your marker and you move your victory points at the end of the game in order to calculate who wins the game. This is much easier and I really prefer it. Also, I'm not sure if this is going to be the final artwork or if it's going to change, but in any case, this is very welcomed. Okay, just tell me who doesn't like this first expansion. It goes without saying that it's a very welcome addition. It adds quite a lot of interesting concepts to the game. Simple rules, just a page or even less than a page. It adds so many things that really change and elevate the game, from a very simple area control with grid movement to so much more. The focus on acquiring the minerals, the building of the research stations, the back and forth of getting the specific colors of specific minerals in order to acquire specific technology cards, because not only the technology cards give you victory points at the end of the game, if and when played correctly in a timely manner, they could provide a very tactical advantage and give you maybe even the victory over the edge. So a lot of nice ideas in this small first expansion, the Dawn of Discoveries. I'm not sure if it is my favorite out of the 2. I really like both of them at this moment. I've played both of them quite enough and I really enjoyed them. These elements are very, very welcome. Just a few tiny things that really bring so much more to the game. Fantastic addition to the game. Really looking forward to this to get published and get funded on Kickstarter. Let's move to the second expansion, the Galactic Divide, and we'll see what this adds to the recipe. Now, as already mentioned, the second expansion for Small Star Empires is called the Galactic Divide. This comes in a red box, and as you would expect from the color, it is a more aggressive and more militaristic expansion. Not that it creates that much conflict, but it brings a lot of conflict aspects to the game. While the Dawn of Discoveries is a more peaceful, researchful and towards science expansion, this Galactic Divide adds more conflict and the elements of war, not just the race of blocking and capturing the most important planetary systems and colonizing them before your opponent. So besides the blocking and the networking that you put with your area control and the grid movement, now you get really to choose civilizations with special abilities and special effects, strengths and weaknesses. Any of them is quite different from the rest, so it's very interesting to see what this brings to this excellent new game. So the setup in this expansion is quite straightforward. Each player chooses a civilization and takes its corresponding civilization board. You can reach at the back of the board and read the story behind the civilization to get more flavor and more theme out of the game. Then you place the ability markers and the power track marker as shown on the picture. So basically you have the power track marker starting at power 2, and the ability markers, each of them will progress down this road and down this road, and the 2 abilities are different for each different civilization. So it's very interesting to see how this works. We're going to explain it very soon, but the setup is quite straightforward. You only have this player board plus the battle stations for each player color, which are these very nice miniatures. Excellent detail as usual. This is an excellent addition to the exceptional good detailed tiny little miniatures, very good for this purpose and for this compact game. And let me show you just a closer look. This is a battle station. It stands out very nicely from the rest, I mean visually wise, which is very welcome because you want to really tell with a glance what is a battle station, what is a space station, a research station, what is a colony or a trade station, and what is your spaceship, obviously. So this is a very nice different way to quickly grasp what belongs to this expansion. And let's see how the new elements affect the game. Now let's see the breakdown of the civilization board. It's very straightforward and very easy to follow. So as mentioned before, you have two main abilities and two main tracks for those, the top and the bottom. Here the blue player, the Tolerant Republic, has the Growing Federation ability on the top and the Annexed Territories at the bottom. Now how this works is you need power cost, which is indicated by the next circle in the path of the disk. So if I want to engage on Growing Federation, I will pay 2 power cost and move my disk here so I can use it straight away. I can only use one ability during my turn. If on a subsequent turn I want to use again the Growing Federation, I will pay 3 as indicated here, and I will move my disk here. My ability for the Annexed Territories is the one below, and I pay 3 to use it and 3 to use it again. Now, as you can see between the disks now, there is a number. Let me show you a bit clear with the fist, which is the power icon. That means that the matching ability level bonus, this is essentially the power I will get back if I manage to match the two abilities within a turn. So if I only focus on this one and this never catches up, I will not gain those bonuses payback power, because power is very essential. If I manage to make it stepwise, I would always be getting the bonuses in between. Again, keep in mind that on your turn, you may play only one of the abilities you have on your faction board. You have to pay the power cost, so you need to have this power in advance, expend it, and then apply the effects of your ability. Let's have a quick look on the different abilities of the 4 different civilizations. First of all, just to mention that each civilization has a very nice flavor at the back. You can read it freely and get into the theme and into the backstory of each civilization. So we have, for example, the Pern Conglomerate. One of their abilities is a galactic corporation. You replace one of your trade stations with a colony. You gain 1 victory point for every adjacent system under opponent control for the newly placed colony. You also have the trade ship. After you move your ship, immediately you gain X points, where X stands for the points you would get as if it was a trade station. Then you have these guys. These look very aggressive as well. They have the top ability, which is the battleships. You damage a ship that is adjacent to one of your ships and you score 2 victory points. And the Galactic Conquest, which is the bottom ability, you destroy an opponent non-nebula colony adjacent to at least 2 of your systems. At the end of the game, you score 2, 4, 6 or 8 victory points for each 1, 2, 3 or 4 colonies that you have destroyed. So you destroy it and collect them. Then you have the Oranor Union. Their first ability is the Unity ships, where your ships may pass through opponents' systems, which is not the case in the normal game. And in this turn you gain 1 victory point for every opponent system that you pass this way. So you want to go through your opponents basically with this ability. Very nice addition, very clever ability. And the Galactic Union, you colonize a system that contains another player's colony that is adjacent to at least 2 of your systems. Last we have the Republic, the Tolerant Republic. Their first ability is Growing Federation. You score 1 victory point for every system you control adjacent to your homeworld, and then you combine a system adjacent to your homeworld, also when you combine it. And then the Annexed Territories, after you move and colonize with your ship, you colonize systems adjacent to the ship, so you move the total planet around of 3 between them. So now the next logical question is, how do you gain power? You gain power essentially through battle stations. When you colonize, you may place a battle station instead of a colony, trade or research station. When you place it, you immediately gain 2 power for each opponent colony or homeworld system, and 1 power for each other opponent structure. For example, this yellow player can move here, and instead of putting a colony, they can decide to put a battle station right here, so they can score immediately victory points and gain power for their structures next to them. That would be 2 for this enemy colony and 1 for this structure, 3 power points. Also keep in mind that you gain additional payback power points when you match the abilities with those 2 tracks. For example, if I match this with that, I will get 2 additional power points as indicated with a number between them. The rulebook mentions an additional variant for advanced battle stations, and the rules that they apply are the same like the regular battle stations, except from the fact that the battle stations now they can protect its own adjacent systems from opponents' special abilities from the cards, technology cards, etc. This is very useful when you want to defend yourself against the events of a card or the technology acquired by an opponent. At the end of the game, players score points equal to the power of the cost value of the first lot left of the markers of their faction. That means that, for example, the red player here, they would score 2 plus 3, 5 power points, 5 victory points for advancing those 2 abilities for their civilization. Obviously, this is in addition to the victory points gained through the normal ways of gaining victory points from the base game, or if you also combine the Dawn of Discoveries with technology cards. Did I like Galactic Divide? Of course I did. It's exceptional because not only does it provide asymmetry to the players, depending on which civilization you take, you have different abilities, meaning you are pre-defining your strategy based on your special advantages as a civilization, but you're not really restricted by that. You can just use it to your advantage. It gives a different feeling if you play, for example, one civilization or the other. Power is very important. Where you place your battle station is very important. How you balance your 2 abilities in order to combine them and move them stepwise so that each ability matches each other and they pay back with very precious power points that you need in order to continue using your abilities. Also the scoring of the victory points, how far you have progressed your 2 abilities. This will award you a lot of victory points at the end of the game, in addition to the standard victory points gained from the normal ways of gaining victory points. This is a very interesting game, a very interesting expansion. It adds simple rules, a lot of asymmetry, a lot of differentiation between the 4 factions. You're just not playing simply red or simply blue or green or whatever. You're playing a real civilization with a history, with a backstory, with different abilities, with different tactical advantages that you need to take really under consideration if you want to win. And also it provides exceptional replayability, because if you play with one or the other, it gives you a different direction and different way to achieve victory. Very, very nice expansion, that one too. So really I would recommend to get Small Star Empires as it is, as the base game. Now with the chance of getting the 2 expansions, really is a no-brainer. It's a very nice idea, a very nice concept, very simple rules. I really had the chance recently to play it with a friend of mine that has absolutely no clue about board games, and he really loved it. It's very simple to grasp and to follow, but also it's very interesting for people that already play board games and are very experienced gamers, especially with the 2 expansions, because they add so much more. You can really teach it in just a matter of minutes, and you really get the grasp, the idea, and what drives the game. So you don't have a tactical advantage if you are first time in the game. You really can get and oppose even an experienced player. It's elements like abstract strategy, area control, grid movement, but now with the addition of the 2 expansions, you get also technology cards, asymmetry from the civilizations, power points, different battle stations and research stations, which adds different elements and different dynamics to the game. So for me, it's 2 thumbs up. Excellent expansions, both of them. Really recommend to get them.